Right, here we go. Okay. We're live. So please do tell your friends that we're live. Sorry about the delay. We got distracted by other things that we will not talk about today. Um 1 second. What do I do? Oh yes, tweet out that we're live. As you can
Yeah.
see, everyone, I see you calling me Matty Belieber, Matty Bieber, Matty Brown Eber. I got a haircut, so thanks for subscribing, everyone. You got me a haircut. Pat yourselves on the back. The Bieber stuff
So
is over.
last time we've been getting some feedback from our audience because the initial 2-3 minutes of our live stream, right? We kind of ham it up, right, while we wait to get into the content. But then we found out for the audience, the portion of our audience that doesn't tune in live, they didn't like that very much. Now they can fast forward, but here at Seattle Overload, we like to take our consumer feedback and let that inform us to make better decisions. So
Right, always.
so maybe our dry banter, maybe us talking about the War of the Roses isn't people's jam. So let's resort to something more classically, something a little bit more historically successful across all sorts of shows, which is jokes. Let's tell some jokes. So Maddie, while we wait to really get started here, I've got some jokes for us here.
Oh, this is
Um,
great. I didn't know you were such a funny guy.
yeah, no, I am big time. Are you ready?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Why did the bicycle take a nap?
Um uh did it not have, the stands that you put on bicycles?
Because it was too tired. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Try to rein it in a little bit.
That's a good one, man.
That's not a real laugh, is it?
No, of course, that was so good.
All right. What next
Okay,
one?
next one.
What has 6 wheels
Mm.
and flies?
I think Boeing, right? They're in Seattle. A 747.
A garbage truck. Yeah?
I don't get that one.
It has 6 wheels minimum, maybe even more. And it flies. Oh, I get why you don't get the joke. A garbage lorry.
We actually call them bin lorries, but yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah, we actually, I swear, we actually do.
Hilarious.
We actually do.
All right. Last one.
Okay.
Saving
Hold
the
on,
best for last.
Let me.
I'm moving away from jokes that relate to modes of transportation because we've got bicycle and the bin lorry, right? So I'm moving away from that because it's a little too thematic. So
no problem. Yeah.
To mix it up, what's the best thing about Switzerland?
They have nice chocolate, I think.
I don't know, but the flag is a big plus. That's pretty good. And I came up with all of these myself. I did not Google them.
That last one seems like I've heard it before. The other two were new to me.
Well, then it's coincidental because I came up with all three. So,
right.
Hopefully,
the bicycle one that was especially new to me. I'd never heard that one.
That's pretty good. I didn't heard that one until a while ago, until I made it up actually. But
yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, so now that we're all warmed up and we have sufficiently engaged the interest of our
I can do my intro, Griff.
We can do the intro and get down to brass tacks.
Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast. It is the tape review from the Seahawks Giants game. Obviously, Seattle won this game, and it is a pretty dominant tape display that we're going to be reviewing. The tape matches the final score. Griff, how good was this?
All in all, it was like really good. If there was still like, they got lucky here a little bit, like lucky there. It could have been worse. Maybe if they faced like an elite offense, they would have still had a good day, but not this dominating day. But I think that's again the lesson because you know if you're going to face an offense that didn't have its best day and you utterly dominated it, from a sense of like relativism, um, then that's what you can do, right? Whereas you could have had the same performance on your side of it, and they could have played better, and that may only meant scoring 20 points, and scoring 20 points in 2022 is not good, right?
No.
So that's how I view it. Now, and also I'm forgetting they had a touchdown off of a turnover inside the 5 yard line. So that's the other side of it here. If we're just talking strictly defense, but yeah, it's just more of the same. Like this team, the defense turned a corner. However good they really are, like at this point in time, like who cares? They are significantly better than what they were, and it's a combination of, like we said, from that Saints game, like they've, even though that game wasn't great, they found a new they didn't find a new identity, they found an old identity, which is really just tweaks, right? But the devil's in the details. They rallied around what has worked for them in the past, and it wasn't that expensive for them to transition back into because there was already so much overlap, right, between what Seattle did last year on defense and what Sean Desai and Carl Scott were doing, so it was really seamless for them. So it's really cool to see that. And then of course, outside of scheme, the younger guys just get better literally every single week. Like Mike Jackson now is joining the chorus of one of the impact players at the moment, instead of just hanging on, like he's legitimately becoming an asset to them. So really good stuff. And the offense is showing they can get it done more than one way. Wasn't the best showing on the ground, and they even had some drops that could have been big plays, and they still managed to move the ball fairly well. So they're a really strong team. And the Giants, even though I said, the Giants didn't have the best day, or like, what does it mean if you face a dominant offense? They were a top 10 offense coming into this game with I think close to a top 10 defense. So with caveats, but anyway, how about you? What are your general impressions?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that there was like a few, kind of let-offs where all the coverage, there was a slight bust here, and there has been in past weeks. I think, when you're having complete defensive performances, heck, even the Legion of Boom, right, there would be a mistake or two, but when you're playing so dominant, aside from that, when you're getting consistent pass rush, when you're showing good coverage looks around that and all this sort of stuff, you can kind of get away with it. It obviously helps. Hopefully, it's like one or two a game. I think kind of defense is difficult, and that does just happen. And an element of luck never hurts, right?
For
And
sure.
and so I think the Giants actually didn't have a bad game on offense. I felt they came with beaters. They came trying to get Seattle's nickel in the run rather than the strong safety. They came trying to test them with difficult formations with their run game. They came with nasty kind of post will beaters. They came with nasty kind of play action beaters, and Seattle just answered in every respect. And their defense is playing with the confidence and executing with the confidence, and execution is always the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
Like they weren't executing well at the start of the season. Why was that? I don't think they were put in the best positions necessarily, but also the players weren't getting it done. Now they're being put in better positions, and the players are getting it done.
Yeah.
And so this is beautiful Seahawks defense.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's to what you're just saying. It's like before it was each element, the execution side and the coaching side, negatively perpetuating one another, negative feedback loop. And now that they've made some tweaks, now it's a positive feedback loop, right? Like they literally have,
Right.
yeah,
And the cool thing about this is not to pat us on the back and not to pat you on the back, which I'll sort of get to why that is. But
Well, how
we
about this? How
saw.
about this? So that we can maintain the veneer of modesty, I'll pat you on the back, and then you pat me on the back,
Yes,
so that it
a
doesn't seem like we're
transatlantic
doing it to
pat.
ourselves. Yeah,
like
sure.
Gorbachev's kiss, you know.
I don't know that one.
Oh, you should look that up. Anyway, let's not get sidetracked. But
Well, I'm gonna get
you
sidetracked.
saw this coming, right?
So in fairness, and now I was also hedging, also in
But
fairness.
but I, for the sake of good podcasting and also for the zeitgeist, I tried to kind of push back on that. But we could both see the signs were coming. The defense, if they made the tweaks, if they made the adjustments, would get there. Now they've done that, and lo and behold, they've got there. So there isn't any reason really to think that they will regress from this point, other than the unfortunate things of football like injuries. Um, Now, one thing we should say is, I guess, their tendencies have changed in the past few weeks, and perhaps offenses will adjust. This coming week against Arizona is going to be a big one because obviously it's the second time these sides have faced each other this season, and the first Arizona game was the first game where the defense really got their stuff together, really lent into the bare front techniques of like yesteryear rather than Fangio style tight front techniques and play style. And so maybe we see something different, but really, I don't. Do you agree? Like the defense should be able to keep this up, perhaps not to this level, but they look sorted for the season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when your structure is that sound and you're playing that confidently, however you ebb and flow throughout the season, I feel like it's just going to be like individual matchups just getting the better of you here and there. Maybe the occasional like really nifty formation and route combination gets them or something, But beyond that, like I can't foresee a structural breakdown. Now, after the Packers game last year, because that was the Packers game was the crescendo of them riding the ship, right? After that Rams game, you had the Steelers game, Saints game, and Jags game where they played really good defense, and then you're wondering, well, those aren't real offenses, and they play the Packers and dominate the Packers offense for 3 and 3/4 quarters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Till the very end of that final drive. And then that was followed up by the Cardinals game. And they just completely, wet the bed with Colt McCoy under center or behind center. So it's like that game didn't feel predictable in any way. It just happened. And this kind of goes back to, well, maybe they made coaching changes not because they're rejecting a philosophy, but it's more like a performance review within the philosophy. I don't know. I don't. Maybe it's just randomness, but there's no indicators with how they're playing right now that they're going to revert anywhere near to what they did, in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So yeah, I don't think they will.
Good, good. So diving deeper into the defensive game plan, um, it kind of seemed like the perfect deal for stopping the Giants with then in-baked adjustments for how New York and Danny Dimes had come to play in Seattle.
Um, yeah, except that by adjustments, they well on the. So do you want to start with like the
Sure.
run? So the bare odd spacing tight whatever is the meta, right? Defensive meta. So the way that and it the premise is that it clogs up classic zone running, right? Because all those interior bubbles are erased. By bubbles we mean interior gaps that are not covered by defensive linemen. So, and that's the literal soft spot on the front. So you run to there. So outside zone, inside zone usually doesn't get much traction against those fronts, right? So naturally, the change up is then to whatever side you put the tight end, you've formed a C gap, and then outside of him a D gap, right? Then you run pullers to that side, so gap scheme runs, or maybe the occasional pin pull thing, which is an offshoot of outside zone principles, but same idea. And the reason why is because, well, there's a bubble there, but then it out leverages the linebackers, the second level fitters, and you can get a free guy to the second level, and it's hard for the defensive line to scrape over on that offensive tackle to make the play in the C gap, etc. So naturally, they ran a bunch of that because Mike Kafka and Brian Dable are smart schemers. And in the past, like we said, and we said this in the reaction pod, when you're in bear, which they are right now, the C gap is a weakness. So Ken Norton Jr. would often he would slant into that C gap, or he would send a rusher into that C gap, like a blitzer, basically for like a run blitz. Or he would put the through technique into kind of a 4-eye or a wide 3 to better let them kind of play and gain a gap and get into the play side C gap. Now that did happen this game, but
Yeah.
what was really cool about this game plan, or really lack thereof, is that they had almost no change-up call to their bear fronts when they were facing this. They defeated it by just beating the crap out of them all day long and by playing really sound. Um, like the defensive lineman never lost a block, and the second level they were scraping over. Even if Kobe Bryant gets involved, being when he's, like you said during the preview, when he's now the primary second level fitter, like the lever fitter, he has to get front side leverage on a 330 pounder. He gets in there, mixes it up. Jordan Brooks scrapes over a tackle. Ryan Neal is pulled through as the backside lever. He's getting front side on the tackle, making a play. It's like they're swarming like piranhas right now. And it was just snap after snap after snap. I think they threw 7 or 8 counter runs at them.
Yeah.
And to the C gap, and they got nothing out of it. Just amazing stuff. And they fit the run out of nickel bear. So
What I found super cool was they were still able, like, even with the pullers, even in the bare front, so with the C gap issue you're talking about, they were able to run their middle field open stuff to cover 8 or cover 6
yeah,
and still fit the run by using cornerback force, like the cover 2 cornerback being the force defender, and then tucking the outside linebacker into the C gap. But like all of these like little adjustments to the front, they were like locked in on, and players were like capable of doing. I'm trying to find a good example here to show you guys, but it's just so encouraging that they're like coverage versatile out of this front. Obviously, ideally you want to be middle field close to stop the run still because you have the extra hat in the box, but then they were able to get a corner up there and contributing in that when they wanted to play too high stuff. It's huge, and it works. Like they kind of bottled up Barkley. He was like a really good runner. Like he was trying to he was eking out yards.
yeah,
He was
yeah,
being difficult. He wasn't just one cutting and going. Like he was dancing a bit if it was like a cloudy picture and creating stuff. They still held him
yeah,
to basically nothing. They took him out of the game basically.
yeah. I mean, Ryan Neal was such an impressive box player this game. Like he's a corner convert. Like he's not. I mean, he's been a safety for a long time now, but I mean, he came into the league as a cornerback, and that probably is why he's such a good like press player against tight ends at the line of scrimmage, right? But um, not so great off, but whatever. Not to get sidetracked, but like the fact that he's mixing it up in there, he looks like he's an undersized linebacker at times. I mean that as a credit to him with the way he moves in the box. He's moving in the box like we could only have hoped Marquise Blair could have at one point in time.
Yeah,
Um,
and like Bryant, right? Like Kobe Bryant, for instance, when they came out with like a trips bunch formation to try then run at him with like a kind of pin pull on the edge
yeah,
and power, he managed to, if I just get this up, he managed to turn back the tight end and make the
yeah,
play. Like when he's not meant to make that play, like the offensive coordinator on the sideline is like, yeah, okay, this is a great play, we'll get him here. And Kobe Bryant here got outside the pulling tight end, and he ends up making the tackle for loss on
yeah,
Barkley on the toss play. Like everyone is playing really sound football within the system,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
should continue.
yeah. And we the Legion of Boom days when a lot of those guys would talk about like when they get interviewed before a game, like a primetime game or something, right? They'd say stuff like how everybody wants to get a hit because when someone gets a hit, everyone else wants to get a piece of the action. And they all like we're all trying to not necessarily one up each other, but they all want the same cred, right? Like in the locker room and stuff. And they would talk about that fairly transparently, like it's part of their culture.
Yeah,
Just not to project too much of our own fanboyism onto what we're seeing on the screen, but everyone's playing like they want to, like they're trying to stake their flag to, like, hey, I'm here too. So like there's just this energy to how they're playing that's like they're all, they're all trying to make a name for themselves. So it's pretty neat. Um
It's super neat. That
yeah,
and like you hear like Shelby Harris spoke this week about how the Saints game they sort of talked some things through. Ryan Neal mentioned how I think it was after the Saints game they brought back team meetings. DK Metcalf referenced the Saints game as a big moment for them. I mean, I think they've just locked it in as a group. And Carroll, like this
yeah,
week, he credited the players for sort of finding their, that it's up to them really, and they're getting it done. Like that's the big
yeah,
thing. And
yeah,
and like here, this is the play like where it's cover two on this side, right?
yeah,
Uh, and this was an interesting one because it was cover two to the boundary and a tight end. Mike Jackson's the play side cornerback, and they ran like a pin pull kind of thing towards him with Barkley from the gun. And he, I think, they motioned from a slot formation shifted, sorry, from a slot formation into like this 2x2 set. And he tried to, I think, tell Boye Mafe you don't need to play in the C gap anymore. You can bump out and be the edge setter in the bare front again. But because it's so loud, I don't think he heard him. So rather than like leaving him out to dry, he just was like, well, fine, I'll play crowd force, even though I've got a wide receiver on me. And he showed up and they bottled this run up as well. To the top, to the other side of formation, they played their cover four look. So, um, and but just really cool how they're just getting it done, and I'm so excited.
yeah, yeah. The fundamentals are better. Everyone knows what they're doing. It's yeah. Um it's good stuff. So that, oh yeah, also the quarterback run game.
Right.
Whoever the backside player was, I mean, they just snuffed it out right away and they got into the alley. I think they had Cody Barton had a couple of plays out there. Ryan Neal had a couple of plays. Um, it's like, wow, like they're all just firing off their key. Like there's no doubt in what they're doing, you know? Like no one's playing with any like, is this right? I think this is right. Because
Yes.
we saw some of that. Like they're all playing with full conviction.
And yeah, the big thing is like there's sometimes that they'll probably do something which isn't technically right. Like there was one play, for instance, where Brian and Irvin stayed for the quarterback, and they kind of missed. Really, I feel like Bryant should have gone across because his two disappeared on a pull. He should have been like the backside lever on the run away and showed up a bit quicker uh, to the handoff, basically to the other side. But the big thing is they're, like you said, they're confident and they're, if they're going to take a shot or they're going to make a play, they do it. There's no hesitancy. They just do
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
that makes such a difference on defense. It makes such a difference. So really exciting run defense, and I guess that theme of being correct continued to the pass game, right?
Yeah. Um, they like you said earlier, the Giants, like they have quite the menu of under center play action concepts off of their under center runs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even their gun runs, like they're very comprehensive. They have a pretty good scheme. Like you can see where if they just had like Daniel
If they
Jones has
just
been
had
having,
what?
well, if they had better receivers, they have playmakers. But if
Imagine
Daniel
if they had
Jones,
Geno Smith, Griff, if they'd been able to have a talent like Geno on their team ever in history.
truly,
Yeah.
truly, yeah, yeah, it's too bad the Giants have never had that in their grasp before.
Mm.
Um, they so, but like, name it, like play, like mesh off of play action with like dagger attached to it, like that. That's just like that's nasty. Like and they're just
Faking sale, like it doesn't look like a flood combination, and then it suddenly turns into one. Like
yeah,
if I just like and mixing the distribution like to try and break middle field open, like you have the one receiver run as though he's running across the field. Then he breaks out on the intermediate out. You have the two receiver run the deep route, and then you have the backside receiver run like over the ball as well. Like
Yeah.
fiddling around with who runs the routes, like really trying to mess with Seattle's matching rules. Like
It's all smart stuff. Like the coaching staff is doing everything they should be doing with what they have at their disposal, right?
yes,
And Seattle just engulfed it. Like they enveloped everything like they were doing with like perfect tempo and timing. Like it was like they were ahead of the play. And I mean, what do you even say at that point? Like they're just Jordan Brooks is in the right spot. Kobe Bryant, well, he's in the right spot. Cody Barton, Ryan Neal in the right spot. Tariq Woolen, when he's playing a cloud, is like tempoing his steps perfectly, falling off of say a number one, like a cloud carry into cover two. So he's the flat defender. He'll reroute number one and then just fall gracefully into the outcut of number two. And then, Jordan Brooks will will tailor the depth of his drop till he no longer has an in-breaking threat. When he's posting number three, he's always like perfect to reroute that route, to kill that route, to help the backside quarter safety, pair up with it. And then, then he can go play the check down. It's just like, wow, these guys are perfect. And that's what they were last year. Last year, they did not give up any deep completions, and they rarely gave up intermediate targets, in the second half of last year,
yeah.
roughly. And it's another case of it. So yeah, like this picture, that was the one here. Yeah, go ahead. Say what you're gonna say.
Well, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but this was you spoke about Woolen being able to fall off. Like this here, Woolen was on the cover four side of the play, and they switched up who was running this, like the deep out route, and motioned into it. So they're really trying to mess with Woolen. But
Yeah.
he had the awareness to process the two receivers on his side, process which of them was going deeper, understand that, okay, Quandre Diggs in his deep quarter is going to be able to pick up one of them. And then he managed to fall off to the shallower outbreaking route. Meanwhile, on the other side, to the cover two side, Cody Barton sunk brilliantly underneath the threat on his side. And you have the quarter flat player on the cover four side, the outside linebacker, Boye Mafe. He's ready for like the check down route on that side. So they're just like blanketing stuff. Like when Jones's back foot hits, everything is looking real cloudy to the longer developing cover four side. And then on the back side, the cover two is blanketed it up. And like this is stuff that translates against any offense, any under center play action game, any play action game in general. So really impressive. Now, what they did have a bit of issues with is the problem with running bare fronts ultimately, which is that eventually you're going to have an outside linebacker, the edge defender, your Nwosu, your Maffeys, your Darrell Taylors. They have the drop. Now that's fine, and Seattle's been doing it in clever ways, but what the Giants did was a clever thing of like a post wheel kind of deal, Griff, and that did require some adjustments from Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, whether it was cover three or half quarter, I mean, the only advantage they had was speed from their number two receiver on the speed of Seattle's outside linebacker. Now, I think they only got a clean look one time where it was Maffei and Jones overthrew it. Otherwise, it might have been a touchdown. Excuse me. Otherwise, like he had a couple of other targets, but they were really tightly covered. Nwosu on Barkley and stuff. The Giants did this clever thing, and Carl Scott actually was mic'd up on the sideline, and they caught him saying how they're lining up one of their receivers at the tight end position, like literally like Y off or Y attach stuff, and they're having him run a wheel. I think that's him right now.
Yes,
running the wheel. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just to manipulate Seattle formationally so that they can get this look, but it didn't work out for them. But then he said to the corners, and I think this is what you're getting at, Maddie, with the adjustment. He told the corners to zone it, as in zone off. So right here, it's cover three. We see Mike Jackson. His number one is 86 running that under route right now, who's underneath Cody Barton. he's squeezing that because he's playing aggressive, tight coverage. So then later on, they adjusted with Mike Jack or Tariq Woolen no longer following, and having them just zone off and play their third to kind of alleviate the stress on that outside linebacker.
Yeah, which is what Seattle used to do with when against certain splits with Pete Carroll. Like it's the standard cover three answer. Because what I didn't realize about this Mafe play, and you'll all remember it because I think in the game Mark Sanchez was like, "Oh, look at this! This was open. Daniel Jones missed it." Where was it? But I didn't realize this was drop eight cover three as well.
Yeah, which
But
is another thing to talk about, though.
it is. We'll get to that. But to be fair, like they tried the wheel route a few more times, and Nwosu was much better at covering it than Maffei. Like Maffei had a kind of up and down, kind of he's still working things out kind of game.
Yeah.
And I should have said about Woolen, he was a defensive rookie of the month for the NFC. So, and he didn't really get thrown at this game. He didn't have much to do. There was the free key completion that he allowed that looked like it was going to be a pick.
Yeah.
Other than that, kind of a dull day for him, but well done. A fully deserved award. So yeah, the drop eight cover three stuff, Griff.
Yeah. So.
Oh no, hold on. How did they
Okay.
adjust to the other than that adjustment? Was there other stuff they did, or was that it?
Off memory, I think they just lived with it, and
Yeah.
I think they just said just be ready for it, and they were ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
But so on that note, drop eight. So kind of with the theme, it takes us right back to last year. So you can be a good 1st and 10 team and defend the run well, and then don't let play action hurt you, right? Don't give up stuff deep, because the earlier down it is, the more likely the offense is to take a shot. So on 1st and 10 with 10 yards to gain, you can just prioritize distributing your resources to defend the run, or to defend, say it's under center, or to defend, the deep ball and be competitive at the intermediate and stuff. But then naturally the check down might be there, right? So if they run you off deep, and then you got to rally and make the tackle, but you're okay with giving up 4 or 5 yards on 1st and 10 if it meant killing one of their shot plays, right? Because they're not going to run a shot play every single time on 1st and 10, right?
No.
Or even a more, even a boot, which has lots of options. You can get 6 yards on a boot with, hitting the lower read, right?
Yeah.
So there's that principle of it. You kind of call it a win if you only give up 4 or 5 yards, but even better in incompletion or a sack. But on 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, even 2nd and 7, 2nd and 4, that's where they could still run the ball, but they could still call a shot play by virtue of having a 3rd down to follow it up with. Or if they hit that check down, now it's either 3rd and 1 or it's a conversion, right?
Yeah, it's a gray area.
So it's a gray area, and it's one of the hardest spots for defense to be in, because you have to defend all levels of the field, and you have the run pass dimension going on at the same time. So Seattle to remain sound now. So the stock answer of defeating this without doing anything special is to have a 4-man rush so ferocious that you force the check down sooner, so that the second level can rally and make the tackle at 1-2 yards, right?
Yes.
Or your 4-man rush is so dangerous to keep the running back in protection, and then the back 7 can play 7-on-4 instead of 7-on-5. You don't have to worry about the running back, right? So that's always the problem. So obviously early on in the season, I think the main reason why we saw so much 2-4 or 4-2 nickel paired with 2 high is so that they could activate their 4-man rush as much as possible, right? And obviously that fell flat on its face. So this game, with how much bear they lived in, whether it's base or nickel, they played their coverages at the 2nd and 3rd level perfectly, but to defend the check down, they just simply dropped an extra guy into coverage, so that no matter what side the back release, they could stay leveraged for it. So now they're defending all 3 levels of coverage. The only drawback is now you have 3 guys rushing, but you're pretty much saying, forget pass rush. We're just going to force Daniel Jones to hold the ball and run around, and then we'll trust everyone to rally and and bring him down. And that worked because how many coverage scrambles did they force this game?
Yep. And like, the interior three, there's less of an emphasis on having to go and contain. It's more just let's flush him out. Let's get him out the pocket here. This is an
Right.
approach that they've used and they used against the Cardinals, right? Against Arizona. And you do use against those sort of teams. The other beauty of it is if it's run, you'll never know it's drop eight because those guys are still the edge setters, the two extra guys dropping.
Right.
They basically drop into the flats of the defense, and then rather than having the other guys drop curl flat, they just drop into the curl, and everyone sort of fits off that. But so it's interesting as well because if you've got five guys down at the line of scrimmage for like the more spread out formations, you kind of need to alleviate some stress by doing it, and you kind of like need to do it for like empty. Like this was a really early call, like from Pete when he developed this defense, right? Because of all the spread formations. Well, we need this kind of call in the system probably more than they needed like actual cover three. Like if you think about college football spacing as well.
Yeah.
And why he developed the defense to stop like the spread offenses and the scrambling quarterbacks. And so you'll see this next week against Arizona too. But yeah, a very cool element to the defense, and obviously it works as like a sort of change up call, and sort of a none the wiser call where it's sort of sounder against the run still.
Yeah. And it goes without saying that their numbers against their second down numbers were really effective this game. And it was a tool that they used, I mean, like you said, last year, but it was a tool that they used last year. They did a lot of drop eight, and their numbers on second down when they dropped eight versus when they didn't drop eight, or their numbers last year when they rushed five or more or rushed three or less, three or fewer, compared to when they rushed four, were night and day different. So statistically, it's very effective for them. It may not look pretty on screen because it looks like, oh, soft zone coverage, or why are you dropping guys instead of letting them move forward? But it's a situational tool that they have in their tool belt, and it was really effective for them.
And like this is very common in college football, like as a call, like today, like drop eight as you need it. You have to do it.
And
offense is pretty good.
And like you said, when you've got five guys on the line of scrimmage, you have to use all the tools to your advantage that spacing affords you. So sometimes that means rushing five. Sometimes that means dropping eight. Sometimes it means rushing four. Now,
do you have a timestamp for a good example of this, Griff? I'm trying to.
I don't have a timestamp.
Okay, don't worry. I'll get on it. Keep talking.
Anyway, ultimately for this game on defense, Daniel Jones, like we said in the recap, and like as everyone's watched, they didn't get anything going in the passing game until some kind of fluky third down conversions late in the game. They really only made one structural mistake. That was when Jordan Brooks. So it was dagger and to trips, and Jordan Brooks has been posting three, not carrying three. That's where you kind of match that guy's depth and put body on him, like reroute him to a certain depth and pass him off to the quarter safety. And the way Brooks has been playing that, he's been almost man turning with it and then like kind of like 360ing back into the hole. But when he turned with the route and saw that Quandre Diggs was really low on the weak number one receiver, because he's Diggs being the weak quarter safety versus trips, he has to poach the number three receiver, meaning take him if he is running a post, or he needs to also play number one weak if he goes vertical. So the number one receiver on the weak side kind of was low enough for Diggs to be able to roll over sooner, but he didn't. And so when Brooks rolled over with that route to post him and then kind of bingo back to his original zone, he saw that Diggs was nowhere near there, so he ran after him. So that meant then Brooks trying to correct Diggs was now out of the window, and Bryant had lost sight of the dig route from the number one receiver who had bent over him, and he was trying to go play the check down. So that was just kind of, I mean, there were two technically 3 people not doing what they're supposed to do. One of them was trying to correct the other's mistake. But that was really the only problem, and they had faced Dagger earlier in the game and done just fine with it. So
Did really well. And then there was another play where Dagger looked like it was coming open, but I mean Brooks was going to get there, but there was a slight, there's an inevitable window for it, and Bryant had come down from his I believe he was probably in the vertical hook, but maybe not. Maybe it was quarter flat play. Anyway, what helped there was the rush got Jones off his spot, which prevented him from getting there. Here you can see the drop 8 thing. So flat, those are both the outside linebackers. Curl, middle hook, deep third, post third. And I'll get up the play Griffin was talking about. But yeah, like you said, I think that there was probably a few minor mistakes in the run game where, like, on another day, you don't know, maybe it could hit for a bigger one. But generally speaking, I mean, it's quite nitpicky, isn't it? This is the play. Here we go. All right, that's probably a good spot to share my screen. This is the play Griff was talking about where they had the mistake. Now Seattle, as Griff was saying, there's disagreement over this guy. I think it's probably Brooks assumed wrongly, and then it's a communication thing. But generally, they would not poach the guy who's attached. But then that is a receiver, so then he's kind of speed at 3, even though he was attached to the line of scrimmage. So again, they need to communicate a bit better. It's noisy. These things happen. This guy actually got wide open, but luckily, look at the pass rush. Like, this is a tight pocket. Like, again, the pass rush helps.
Shelby Harris's rush saved them a touchdown right there.
Yeah.
And it was cool. Like, so we talked about how they're getting the most out of their 4-man rush. So Bruce Irvin is the rusher, and I think that's Maffei at the top of the screen. He's the dropper. So they've got 4 guys rushing. So Harris was the near 3 technique to Irvin. So to give Irvin as much space one-on-one, he stunts the A gap, and then you've got, I think, is that Al Woods looping over him. Obviously, Irvin doesn't win his rush, but the point is that even that stunt still helps, because they're probably thinking half slide to Irvin's side. They're not thinking that guy's going to rush inside him. That 3 technique, the guard isn't thinking that.
No.
So it just puts him in a tight spot, and Harris bull rushes the guard, kind of shoulders him in right into Daniel Jones' platform. Jones has to sidestep it to his left, which he does, but that kills the chance of throwing the touchdown. Instead, he does throw that dig route, who's right on the 30-yard line there. And I don't know why Kobe Bryant expands. They've been doing kind of a weird thing with their vertical hook player. They've kind of been like V-dropping almost, like dropping diagonally. I don't know why he's not just running, kind of
tight,
splitting the numbers in the hash like Ugo would more. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what the coach. Sometimes he will, but sometimes it's like very much like he's almost like he's dropping like a buzzer. I don't really quite get it. Like in cover 3,
because of 3 to the flat to protect against flood. Like, I don't
to
know.
Push out. That makes sense.
It doesn't really though, because you got cloud corner to you. I don't understand.
I think though, because if say you get like a double 7s or something.
Okay.
So number 2 and number 3 both run outbreakers at different depths, and that pulls both the safety and the cloud corner out. Then Kobe Bryant can he has to play top down on it then. But that's the only thought process I can muster from where I'm sitting.
So Camden asks, why isn't the DB over him? Camden, I assume you mean this. Well, it's because Diggs thought Brooks was going to play it. Brooks thought Diggs was going to play it. There's 2 ways of playing it. Either Brooks plays it or Diggs plays it. And one thought one thought the other. And that's why there's no DB over him. But really, I can see arguments for both, because it's speed at 3, where generally you'd have Diggs look to it and play it deep. but that 3 receiver was like a Y off lining up as a tight end. Again, Kyle Scott mic'd up. I need to watch that GIF, but
It's good.
he said how they were doing that. So, generally with a Y off, they wouldn't call tricks. They'd have Diggs play in the backside quarter, which is what he was doing, and not look to the front side and basically help double the one. And then they'd have Brooks just handle 3 up, and he can handle 3 up. So there you go.
Yeah.
2 ways of playing half quarter coverage.
Indeed.
Ooh, anyway,
and look, they call it middle of the field open for a reason, because that's what can happen.
Yes. So,
all right. So, offense.
The Seahawks offense. And firstly, before we get into the tape, Kenneth Walker, the third, is the NFC Rookie of the Month. And a certain Geno Smith is the NFC Offensive Player of the Month. And he was very humble in his press conference and gave it to Shane Waldron, his offensive line, the whole offense, the Seattle Seahawks. So that's cool. But good for Geno, good for Kenneth. How about this offense then, Griff? Is it still popping?
Yeah. Even though they didn't have, the biggest day statistically, it could have been a lot more. You catch a couple more balls.
Yeah,
that were catchable.
As I said on the podcast with Ty yesterday, Pete Carroll said it could have been 4 or 5 touchdowns. I said that in the post game live recap. Like it should have been really for Geno, and like the fact Geno still won Offensive Player of the Month when really it's been like a few missed opportunities, not through his fault, but like there's been some near misses where you're like, oh, that was like almost a very nice touchdown pass, just out of bounds. I feel like, I mean, it's not been the worst execution and like missed moments, but it's definitely not been the peak that it could have been, and we may see a peak.
Yeah, we might. I mean, they still have a perfect game in them. It just hasn't quite happened yet. So yeah, I agree. This game was interesting because, and Shane Waldron said this in his press conference today, but he said that the Giants were a similar pressure team as the Cardinals. And obviously we know that the Cardinals game, they couldn't really get anything going till the second half. And that was when they put together, that's when they played, heavier personnel and stuff, right? The 12 and 13 personnel. This game, they kind of opened the game with heavier personnel. And that said, they still didn't have exactly an offensive explosion in the first half. But when they did move the ball, it was mainly under center play action out of that 12 and 13 personnel. And they were,
and that's a fine line, because then that brings guys, that invites more blitzers and harder protection to pick up. Like for instance, one of the sacks of Geno where like they end up bringing like 7. And you've got a tight end on a primary edge rusher, because that's how you protect that look.
Right. Yeah, so no, for sure.
Tough.
So it can help you, but it can also hurt you for the same reasons. So it is tough. Now, but there were still missed opportunities in that first half, like that 3rd and 10. Now you're in 3rd and 10, so things probably aren't going well for you on early downs, right? If you're in 3rd and 10, but that corner ball to DK, where DK, his arm was pinned, but I still think there are still some. I mean, I'm being too hard on DK. There are some receivers that bring that down.
Like a certain Tyler Lockett, right? Like, I think he catches that. Here's the play. So it was a really good play from Geno, where if I just pause it at the right moment.
Throws he made when he had pressure on him this game were absurd. The other one where Tyler is just out of bounds, and that was really tough on Tyler too. The fact that he makes the catch is incredible. But DK lets that ball go so early with the pressure right on him. And but to make it the timing work, he puts so much arc on it. The fact that he placed it perfectly, like he's just dialed in. But yeah, here's the DK play. The thing is, yeah, DK got his arm pinned, but there are some receivers that know how to fight that off and not get their arm pinned. and they make that catch. Like, because he gets separation, credit to him, but then he can't like maintain it.
It was perfect placement from Gino, and Pete Carroll ran down the sideline like literally miming like his arm was pinned.
Yeah, and his arm was
Um,
pinned, like ticky tack. You know that's by letter of the law that should have been called. Um, yeah, and look at Blythe getting bull rush. That was probably Blythe's worst rep of the game. He didn't have many.
I wonder if that's when he sprained his knee.
That's possible.
It looks pretty
But
anchory right there.
look at Gino right there.
Yeah,
Look at
that's the
him in
thing.
the pocket.
He works in crowded as heck pockets and gets it
Um,
out accurately.
so remember how in the 49ers game when he was getting pressured, he wasn't able to put the full force into the ball, and even the
Hmm.
Falcons game a little bit. I'm seeing him accessing all of his power when he's not able to step into the throw the way he wants to in the past weeks. I don't know if it's an emphasis thing, but ever since that Lions game, he's been doing it. Lions, Saints, Cardinals, Chargers this week. And you know who it reminds me of? Just at the throwing portion of it, and only that, not like all the processing and everything. Although there are some similarities. Is Ryan Tannehill. The way Ryan Tannehill gets some throws off where he stands super strong in the pocket with guys
Yeah,
right
yeah.
on him
Looking like a
and
giraffe.
just rips it. Like, I have major respect for that aspect of Tannehill's game. Gino's doing that.
Because they're both. Well, actually, how tall is Tannehill?
He's 6'4".
You're right. There you go. This
Yeah,
works then. They both look kind of clunky and awkward doing it because they're not like they're slimmer quarterbacks, right? And it can look a bit weird, but they're ripping it, and
yeah,
they're in the tight space, and it looks claustrophobic, but they're ripping it,
yeah,
and they're accurate with it. It's a good comparison.
yeah,
So O line wise, both tackles did really well.
yeah. They did.
Again,
Yeah,
again, I feel like a lot of the issues were. I mean, this is a nasty as hell kind of defense in terms of like for the O line. You want to avoid pure drop back situations, and most of the issues were either in pure drop back situations or like under center where you get the play action and you get a pressure, and it's a tough matchup. But like most of the pass protection issues I saw were just a guard losing a two-way go in a one-on-one in a pure passing down. And heck, Gino can make that work still. Like he can step up, he can sidestep some pressure if needs be. Obviously, he's not invincible, but his pocket maneuvering is a
yeah.
definite skill at the moment. So yeah, what do you see out of the offensive line?
I think that they protected well. I mean, I agree with what you said. They had a lot of issues in the run game. Like, they could not move Dexter Lawrence or Leo Williams. And then
Oh my
also,
word, Lawrence is a well,
he's
both of them, yeah. That was unbelievable, real stout stuff, and just block shedding
yeah.
at really good times.
And what's weird is that the Giants, surprisingly, they didn't actually have like their opposing
They were
rushing
bad, right?
success rate is poor. And
Yeah.
I think, and the way I don't like, maybe they have like internally they have really good numbers in certain fronts, and
Mm.
with Seattle playing heavy and them probably maybe being a little bit more conventional with that, maybe like they actually perform better when they're more gapped out and fundamentally focused. Like, maybe they actually have a good run defense inside them, but they just schematically don't tap into it or something. I don't know. But I was especially impressed by the way the second level moved. Like we talked about on the recap, they made a lot of those last second tackles where it looked like Walker probably had 3 runs where I think we all thought, oh, this could be one that he pops.
Yep. Yep.
And then the backside run through, backside lever guy just comes through at the last second and makes that shoestring tackle. And it's like, okay, 2 yards, 3 yards, or 4.
Yeah, they flew to the ball.
Um, I don't know. Maybe it was just a point of emphasis for them. But like, nothing worked. The outside zone didn't work. The gap runs didn't work. The gun change up gap runs didn't work. Like nothing worked. They couldn't get movement. So it was just one of those. But now that said, on the, you don't want to be in many dropback situations. What won the game for them, of course, or what sealed the deal rather, was that Tyler Lockett double move into the touchdown. I mean, that was straight up like a full field progression. I think you had DK on running an out route, and then Will Disley running across, essentially like a Y cross progression. And Lockett is all the way on the back side of it now, but I think Gino knew that's where he was going pre-snap, though.
He did. So that's a really cool play because, as he said in his press conference, Tyler gave him a hand signal, noticing that the cornerback technique that was going to get played, like a hard spot thing, and they worked that out pre-snap that, okay, we're going to do the double move here. And again, the fact that you can't tell that Gino's looking for that immediately, he's really good at looking guys off and not like getting overly excited. Like, oh, I've got the look. Like he's honest. He holds the post safety, and that was that was one of the best drives in Seahawks history in of Dino's amazing Seahawks career so far, where they throw underneath, and then they get them on the double move where the route is very similar to Metcalf's catch, or it looks very similar to Metcalf's catch, where he catches against it's basically cover four, but it's the kind of aggressive cover four that DK is getting. Where if I show you, the cornerback is in like he's almost playing like box out trail technique. It's almost like two man like this, and then the safety's a quarter, but he's way over the top, and he's way over. Like he's just playing DK. It's like a like basketball kind of style double.
Yeah.
And then what was so cool is the Lockett catch comes on the double move where Lockett shows a similar kind of, I'm gonna come back, I'm gonna get you, and it's a double move. And the pass from Gino is superb. And you have to say as well, the Goodwin drop, which at first I felt harsh calling that a drop. It is a drop. It goes through his hands.
Yeah.
Gino's got a lot of pressure coming in his face, and he makes that accurate throw. I should say the pass protection was good. It's just a shrinking pocket like we were talking about earlier. Lockett's earlier uncharacteristic drop where Gino's right on the money with that absolute dime. That's what we're saying. It could have been 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, and also, like, even though Goodwin dropped it, but that play really shows how tough a cover he is, because the corner was just off, and Goodwin doesn't do anything special at the top of the route where he starts to break or bend a little bit.
He just runs.
He just outruns him. He's just very fast, and the corner was not fast enough.
Great analysis.
Like here, Goodwin just gains on him the whole time, and
yeah, because the corner started like here, 7 yards off, 1 yard outside. Like you should be able to play top down on an over route where there's not much deception. He's just running down the field. But nah, Goodwin's an Olympian. Like,
see you later. Yeah, and unfortunately, he's got to be killing himself because he would have demonstrated. I mean, he's on the team. He doesn't need to be. He would have demonstrated so much value.
Maybe kicking himself, not killing himself.
Did I say kill? Oh,
you did. Yeah. It's a slip of the tongue.
Yeah, it was a little dark for me. Kicking himself. Because the ball was perfect, so very frustrating. And he did what he needed to do to score the touchdown up until catching it. So
he did.
That's frustrating for him.
And this is the sort of thing which is big to hit as well, because there's no post safety. Like they're running some kind of BS defense where they're like sending. They didn't even send that much prep. Well, actually, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They sent 7. So it is kind of BS. And if you hit that, then it's like, coach on the sidelines like, hey, coach, what coverage was that? Why are we leaving Goodwin one-on-one with no coverage help? And Wink's like, oh, that's what we do.
Yeah.
But it puts some thought in their mind. The fact you miss it, then it's like, oh, we'll do that again.
You're right. Now they do follow this up with 2 fourth down conversions, and then Geno Smith throwing a very anticipatory dig route. I think, was it a mesh concept in the low red zone to DK Metcalf?
Yes.
So he threw, so that middle linebacker starts to melt with that second crosser, and he's in the window by the time Geno starts his throwing motion.
That was absolutely beautiful. That
And then by the time
absolutely.
he actually throws the ball, it looks wide ass open. That's because he's in processing and anticipating. So it's just
Yeah.
really good stuff.
Let's get that up. Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Perfect. Oh, hold on. Oh, there we go. So you can see this linebacker's like, oh, there's a crosser, and he starts feeling his way underneath that crosser. They've got underneath Lockett's other crosser, but DK creeps around the back, right into the back of the end zone. And Gino reads this so fast, by the way. Like
Yeah.
he's like, bang Lockett, no, bang Eskridge, no, zipped in. Like I was obviously I don't know the routes, so I'm playing behind. When I first watched it, I didn't know the exact pattern. So, but like I was still impressed with it. It's like bang bang, the ball's out like with 2 seconds in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Which reading 3 routes, that's impressive. And like a tight red zone coverage where
So
it's
many
not man
moving
to
parts.
man. There's like a lot of exactly. There's loads of moving parts. It's not as simple as man to man. So very
Yeah.
cool.
Yep. Yep.
So
Awesome stuff.
I think that's the offense done. It feels wrong to have spent only like 20-ish minutes on the offense compared to the 40 or so we did in the defense, but the offense is almost well, I'm not tired of it, but it's so good each week that it's that we must not take it for granted, and don't think that by us just doing 20 minutes on it, we are taking it for granted. So Griff, the Arizona Cardinals, they have Nuke Hopkins. He has returned. However, he of course lost Hollywood Brown in the last game. It was funny hearing Pete Carroll try and speak, well, not try and speak, but speak in complimentary fashion about their offense when he was saying about how they really tried to spread the ball around and throw it all around, and they play left and right with their receivers, which he was like, which is just how they do it. But yeah, that's quite odd for the NFL. Anyway, Hopkins is going to be the left receiver, and obviously he's going to get a load of targets, and I think we'll probably see Seattle cloud him, like if there ever was a time
Yeah.
where they just cloud Hopkins every time, like one receiver every time, it would be Hopkins, right?
Yeah, I agree. And this takes us back to the Chargers game where we saw less of it this week, but when we saw the kind of like the 4-2-5 nickel. Well, no. It was like 3-3-5 nickel, but you have got Cody Barton on the field.
Ooh,
And
with the old nickel as the second edge.
With the nickel as the second edge, essentially take your 3-4 base, but then replace the strong side linebacker, outside linebacker
Yes,
with Kobe Bryant.
Great point, because Pete spoke about the importance of how they force you to cover all of the field, and spread you out, and you have to spread your defense out, and that basically means they need to be able to cover down everywhere.
Cover
And
down
have lots
everywhere.
of coverage options.
Right. The coverage options, because like you said, Maddie, like you have unlimited adjusters at that point.
Unlimited adjusters.
You don't have an issue where one of your overhangs is Bruce Irvin or Uchenna Nwosu or even Daryl Taylor. Like you can make sure that guy is always someone coverage oriented. And that way you can cloud either side. Maybe you need to play cover 2 to both sides. So yeah, anytime he's isolated, I expect him to be clouded. But I wonder, they haven't been isolating much, but maybe that's because Hopkins hasn't been out there. They've been doing so much 2x2 spread, right? So I expect, well, not even necessarily. I'm mixing them up with the Chargers. They've been doing a lot of tight end wings, But now that he's out there, we're not going to see as much 12 personnel. It'll be more 11. Now, if he is isolated and say
I mean,
they're in,
Woolen versus Hopkins, Griff, because
yeah,
it's left versus right? Like, that's
right.
going to be awesome.
So going to cloud them. They're going to play some quarters, but when they do, are they going to keep that quarter safety home and play true 2-on-1, like almost cone coverage on him? If
Yeah.
that's the case, then the next big question is if they
And
figure that
why would you
out.
do that when Woolen's best route, arguably, that he covers is when he's in a press quarter and he undercuts a dig?
There you go. Now we can play more aggressive on the in breaking stuff. Okay, good point. But then the fundamental question is that means the trip side, Jordan Brooks has all of number 3. So we'll be seeing him taking
Versus
3
Zach
through.
Ertz.
Well, sure.
Rondale Moore.
Rondale Moore. But it's still speed, right? With Moore, he may not be good, but he's still speed.
He is, yes. Well, that's
So,
cool because we get to see Brooks's amazing ability.
right. And that said, when Brooks, they did a little bit of it last week and Brooks still handled him just fine. Or 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. Now, but that means if you're running off the mic and you know you're running off the mic, that's where Dagger starts to come in too.
Right.
That's where Ertz at 2 is going to be a problem because he'll be running the dig route from the 2. So with Moore at 3. So that just kind of goes to show the downstream effect, the domino effect that having an elite guy on the field like Hopkins has. So I'm curious to see how they rearrange all their moving parts this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they're going to win in the trenches, run and pass. And I think that, I don't know, they might give up an explosive or two, but I don't think they're going to give up by way of much in the drop back game otherwise.
I mean, this Arizona team looks like a mess. Like, they're 3-5. Somehow, though, the bookies, the sports books, apparently the Seahawks are plus 1.5, so they're technically the underdog. Which I guess, weird things happen in that godforsaken stadium. But yeah, odd. And the offense did struggle, so it will be it's really good to get to see the offense have a chance at like doing a bit better because they won 19-9 last time round. It really was kind of the defense helping. They obviously stalled in the red zone a lot. Gino went 20 for 31, 197 yards, 0 passing touchdowns. And it was just that game of field goals, wasn't it? All 5 red zone trips they stalled. I can't remember. I should have that up if I was a good podcaster. But yeah, so
but
that's an intriguing one, and like it's a great point. Thank you for watching Shane Waldron's press conference. The Giants are stylistically similar in their pressure stuff as well, and I think kind of how they last time Arizona surprised Seattle with their variety of edge rushers and how they kind of variety of rush packages, right? And like Marjay Sanders looked like a player, didn't he? And you were like, oh my word, how could that ever happen? He's not ill anymore. He now looks like a good player.
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great game, I think, and a good test of the Seahawks. Are you for real? Are you a first place in the NFC West team? Are you worthy of a 6-3 title? Or are you going to lose to Cliff Kingsbury and the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Griff's done for the night. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Please do like this video if you're watching on the YouTube. Subscribe to Matty F. Brown's YouTube channel. That's my YouTube channel. Follow me on Twitter at Matty F. Brown. Follow Griffin on Twitter at CMightSpinMove. If you're listening, you can do the same as those last 2 options. You can do the same as all of it if you really dedicate, if you're a true overloader. And if you're listening as well, give us a 5-star review, please. That really does help us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live. Enjoy the game on Sunday. We'll be there after the game, not in Arizona, with live reaction on the YouTube channel, or you can listen to that on your Monday morning. Then, obviously, same schedule. Wednesday, news show. Thursday, live from Germany, Matthew Brown will be.
That's right.
Thursday, we will have the Cardinals tape review. and then Sunday, the Buccaneers, and it all rolls on.
Ooh, want to hear a joke about paper?
Yes, I'd love to hear. You hang on. When you were distracted just then,
Yeah,
were
I was looking
you?
up jokes.
No, not looking up. You were
Or
thinking of the
creating.
jokes, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Creative process. Ladies and gentlemen, live on YouTube, you got to see the creative process of a comic genius, comedy legend, Griffin.
Well, now you're making me all self-conscious. I mean, I'm not that funny.
No, don't be,
Anyway,
don't
do you want to
be.
hear a joke about paper?
Yes, I'd love to. Yes, please. Yes.
Never mind, it's terrible.
And
And cut.